Hi everyone, my name is Preenon Huq. I'm an Armstrong alumni. I graduated in 2014. I also went to Augsburg College and I graduated with an accounting and finance degree in 2018. I'm here to talk to the class of 2023 about setting up their future for post-high school and kind of the things and tips and tricks that I learned throughout my way. My journey actually started very similar to when you guys were in your class right now. I am now 25 and I have over $200,000 saved. I graduated with no debt. I also graduated with a pretty good job in accounting and finance. I have a couple side hustles. I worked as a wedding DJ, still do that today. I also worked at Best Buy part-time, worked for a valet company. I also worked for the school at Augsburg, did a number of different things. And so my biggest thing today is to talk to you about things that are really important for your future that I didn't necessarily understand and wanted to work towards. And so to start off, my journey really started with about my sophomore year, going into my junior year. I was working at McDonald's and I was working to make just about minimum wage at the time. It was my first job. I was making $7.25. I was working as the front end person, and so I was really excited for this opportunity, even though a lot of people were like, oh, McDonald's, that must suck. And then, but when you're 15 and 16, you're kind of looking for any experience that you can learn about the future. And a job really depends on what you make out of it. A lot of people think that, if it doesn't have a prestigious name or career, but what they don't understand is that every job has a skill set. Every job, you'll learn something. If you look around, you'll see a lot of successful people in different roles, and that's something that I picked up as well. So an example of that is when I was working there, I really understood how a business ran, especially one that is gigantic around the whole world. How do they run so efficiently? How do they get somebody through the drive-thru in 90 seconds? How do they create advancements for their workers and benefits to keep them around and happy while also delivering a great experience for the customer? And so a big part of that was started with in the front end of it with just me, even at the cashier. Like the first time somebody walks in saying, hi, hello, having that big smile on my face to keep them excited and know that they're in a good place. Because when you go to a fast food place, you want a good experience. You're excited to have food. You're excited maybe with your friends and family. You might be going there to get ice cream. Regardless of what it is, you want to have a good experience and you want it to be accurate as well. And so I was working there for about a year and a half and I was saving as much as I could. I saved about $1,500. And so what I was doing is that I would give myself a small allowance. So I'd give myself maybe $50 every paycheck out of my $100 or $150 paycheck, and then I would put the rest away in my savings account. And I did that every time, and so every 2 weeks I would get paid and I would spend that money on going to get pizza with my friends, going to the movie theater. Regardless of what it was, I could spend the money, and then I was putting the other part away. But then I got to one of my coworkers who was working there was also an Armstrong alumni, and he told me, he was a year older than me, he was going to go to college with $10,000. And I was shocked. I was like, how do you do that? Because he was working at the same McDonald's I was working at, making the same $7.25, $7.50. I know minimum wage is a lot higher now. And then he was also working at a Solo's Pizza, which is very similar to like Chipotle of pizza. And I was very impressed by that. And so I felt that you could do that, I can do that too. And so I went home and I was trying to look for a different job. I was looking for places like Olive Garden, Lifetime Fitness, places close to me that sounded exciting. I thought it would be fun to be a server. I also thought working at Lifetime would be fun because of the gym membership. A lot of my friends go there so I could see them. And I ended up settling at working at a bank. And a lot of people laugh because that's probably the most boring out of the three, but it was the most highest paying, and it also felt like it would be a good place for me to go because I knew that I wanted to do something in finance one day or accounting. And so I applied, and they really liked that I had good customer service skills. They liked that I worked at McDonald's. They liked that the cashier experience, like all of those things resonated really well with working at TCF. And the other thing is TCF hired at 17 at the time. I'm not sure if they still do, but that was another thing that a lot of people didn't know or weren't aware of. I went to school and people are like, you work at a bank, don't you need like a degree for that? Or don't you need, some more level experience? But in reality, you really just needed customer service experience and also that cashier experience. And that's what they were looking for because they were willing to train you. And so I was so fortunate that I took that opportunity, applied for it. I came up dressed in a suit. I was well prepared. I practiced interview questions. I looked online on resources and just really brought that energy of professionalism and practice too, and being prepared for that interview. And that's a lot of things that other people are not aware of, that those are important. The way that you dress for an interview, the way that you talk, the way that your body language, if you're standing up straight, if you're walking in, you're wearing the right clothing for the interview, like all of these things are so important to the aspect of an interview. And so after I was working at TCF, I was actually doing really well and it worked out for me, but I was still working at McDonald's. So Monday through Friday, I was working at TCF. I was working almost full time. I was working about 30, 35 hours a week in the summer. But every Sunday I was still working at my McDonald's and I really liked it. I knew all the customers' names. I liked the way that the business ran. I felt like there might be a future in McDonald's and maybe one day owning one. I just felt so good about working there. And like another thing that people don't realize is that McDonald's invests a lot of money in their technology and making their company a better place. Like they have the fastest machines and technology, so when you pull up your car you can hear the sensor and then somebody says, "Hi, how can I help you?" Automatically the drink machine, as soon as you choose a Coke, it automatically goes and the person just has to put a lid on it. And I went to TCF and they didn't have any of that. They had actually a lot older technology, which was really dated, almost 10 years old, and it made the job actually harder to do. And so going in from a very fast-paced environment to the slower environment was very interesting to me, even though I was making more money at the time. But I continued to work there every Sunday and I would get 2 paychecks. So one week I would get my TCF paycheck, which was about $600. And then the other week I would get my paycheck from McDonald's, which would be $60. And I continued on by still saving that $60 every paycheck and using that to buy whatever I wanted. But the $600 that I got from TCF, I was putting that towards my savings account, towards my goal of saving $10,000 before I went to college. And that was the biggest change for me, because if I wanted to buy something, I only had that $60. If I wanted something more than $60, I would have to wait 2 paychecks with the McDonald's money and then purchase it. And I always kept my checking account balance pretty low, and I kept it with only the amount of money that I was able to spend. I can't tell you how many people I know that are trying to save, but they only have one account and their checking and their savings is all in one account. If you put it in your savings account and you have some money in your checking account, if you have $60 in your checking account and you want to buy a pair of shoes for $100, you can't, right? There's just no way, because you're negative. Even if you had $1,000 in your savings account. Now, if you try to do the same thing, but you have $1,060 in your checking account and you want to buy a pair of shoes for $100, you wouldn't even think about it. You could buy 10, 11 pairs of shoes. It's not that expensive and it doesn't hurt your budget that much. So when you're thinking about a lot of those things, it's kind of a mindset. It's the way that you're thinking, the way that you look at your card, and you're making these quick split decisions when you're spending money. And really sticking to it, not transferring the money from your savings to your checking. And so while I was doing well and starting my career as a young person at this time, I was around 17, 18, I wasn't doing well academically. I was actually doing very badly in school. I didn't understand the importance of school. I always thought that I would be fine without it. Like I was saying, I was doing really well at TCF. I felt like I could get promoted there. I wouldn't have to go to college. And while I was still applying for school, so I applied to U of M, I applied to UMD, I applied to St. Thomas, I applied to St. Cloud, Mankato, every school basically in Minnesota, and I was getting just rejection letters throughout. And while my friends were choosing between what school they wanted to go to and the costs, I'm trying to figure out if I'm even going to make it to college without going to community college. And also, how am I going to pay for it? Because I didn't want to go to school with all the debt. And so I wasn't feeling good about that, because one, I didn't want to go to college because I didn't think that I was academically ready. I didn't think that I was smart enough to go, which is just not true. Like, I know that I'm smart enough, and things are just different, right? So if just because you weren't successful in high school doesn't necessarily mean that you won't be successful in college. College is completely different. There's a lot of different things that you learn while you're there. And so, and also the curriculum, the way you choose classes, the way that you want to learn about a topic, the structure of each class period. And so what ended up happening is that I wasn't going to get accepted anywhere. I applied to Augsburg. My sister went to Augsburg, and so she was an alumni there. And they waitlisted me. And so they said, if you do well your junior and senior year, we will maybe accept you. And I had to also write a paper on an important person in my life. And so I made sure to write the best paper I possibly could, revise it. I asked other people to look at it. I tried to get some different opinions, because basically my future for education really relied on this paper, as well as doing well for school. And I was starting to think about how I could do better in school. I was always showing up late. I wasn't really paying attention in class. And so the first thing that I did to try to get myself to do better and actually want to go to school was to get the very first parking spot in the parking lot. And I know it's so crazy to think that, but I hated walking from second lot. I was always late, and like, if you're there 5 minutes later, you're gonna miss it completely. And so my goal was to get to that very first spot. And every day when we went out for open lunch, I had spot number 1 or spot number 2, and my friends were always like, how do you do that? How do you get, like, you must get here at 6:30 or 6:20. And in reality, it was actually, I just had to get there 5 to 10 minutes earlier. Most of the time I was trying to get there at 7. A lot of the time, if you got there at 6:50, you were getting there a little bit earlier, 6:55. So I usually had to get there between 6:45 and 6:50 to get the very first spot. The time that I spent walking from second lot to the building would have been 5 to 10 minutes. So it actually made way more sense for me to just show up a little bit earlier and hang out and get my morning routine done while everybody was still, taking the bus or getting their way to school. I was kind of planning out my day, what homework that needed to be done, what things that I needed to get ready for school, and then plan out my week. And so it actually gave me some time to relax and kind of enjoy myself, and there wasn't a huge rush for anything. Talk to my teachers, kind of figure out if I was going to miss anything that week, and it just really helped me a lot. And eventually I did get into Augsburg, go Augies, which was super awesome, but I was really scared. Even though that I got accepted at this point, I was scared because I wasn't sure if I was, 1, going to be able to afford it, and 2, if I was going to be ready for school. But mainly I was worried that I wasn't going to be ready for school. And that's a scary feeling. I mean, again, financially, I felt fine. I had the $10,000 saved at this point. I ended up hitting that goal, which was awesome. And I had an opportunity to move up at TCF. They really wanted me to move up. And I said, no, I have to go to college. My dad, actually, I told him I was wanting to take a gap year and see how TCF would work out, because they were willing to pay me $14 an hour, which was a lot of money at the time, and the ability to maybe have my own branch and make, $20 to $30 an hour. And I was just really thrilled about that. I was like, why would I go to college and spend all this money? And what I didn't realize is that the opportunity that college would have opened for me. And so once I got to college, the first thing I did was research on how to be successful in college. So I read a bunch of articles about staying organized, showing up on time, time management, planning out your schedule, and finding out what works for you. Like for me, an online calendar worked out really well. For other people, or not using an online calendar worked out very, very well for me. For other people, it's using an online calendar. I liked using a traditional planner that I could see all 30 days and write in all the days that I would be busy, and then I could see over an overview of what I needed to do and what to complete and what time of the month that I'm going to be busier based on all the different curriculum that I have and all the assignments. And the other thing that's nice about college is that I didn't realize that I was just going to be going to school for like 1 or 2 hours a day, because I had a class in the morning that was maybe an hour and 10 minutes, and then I would have another class in the afternoon that might have been another hour and 10 minutes. And so I remember going up to a kid and asking, hey, where do I go? Because I thought it was going to be like high school where you go to school from 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. But then he saw my schedule and he's like, you don't have to go anywhere. This is college. You can just go where you want, and there you have a break there. And so I was shocked by that. But what I realized is that you spend less time in the classroom, but you're going to be spending way more time working on projects and assignments, and then really the time management on your own, and how quickly you can get those things done, how efficiently you can get those done, what resources that you need. If you're writing a paper, do you need to go to the writing lab and get some help there, and actually putting that effort towards everything. And that was a big part of my success, was just understanding how college was going to work and the curriculum. And I ended up what I ended up doing was, during that break period, I was like, okay, well, I don't have anything, so maybe I should look for a job. I really liked working at TCF. I was still working there on Saturdays, but I was looking for something to do during the day, and I ended up deciding not to do anything my freshman year because I still wanted to focus on school, but I kind of was starting to think about that my sophomore year of school. And right after my first year, my dad told me to apply for internships, and I told him, Dad, I went to college after first year, they only hire juniors and seniors. And he was like, just apply. I mean, like, what's the worst that could happen? You don't get an internship, but you have some experience of practicing interviewing. You have some experience of the process of how to get an internship. And so I applied, and that was the best thing that ever happened to me. I applied for 12 internships. I got one interview, and that was the one I got. And the starting pay was $15.50 an hour, which was more than I was making or would have made at TCF. And I was just I couldn't believe it. I just honestly could not believe that I would be making more money, that it would be a better opportunity, that there's room to grow. This is just the beginning. And all of those things were so crucial into starting my journey in college. And I learned a lot that internship. I learned about Excel and how to use it and how to be more efficient. I learned about project management. I learned about, it was for Metro Transit, so I was learning about the bus services and how the community interacts with that, and how these big multi-million-dollar and billion-dollar projects have such a long effect on these people. And so how crucial it is to be prepared and work through all the obstacles. And every day was just fun too. Like, it was such a fun environment. When you're an intern, everybody loves you. They want to teach you about your future. They want to help you grow, and it's just awesome in that sense. And the other thing about an internship, you can do it for 3 months. I ended up doing mine for 2 years, but you can kind of get a feel for if you like the environment, if this is where you want to work for. If you don't, the next summer comes around, you apply for another internship that sounds exciting to you, and maybe that's a better choice for you. And it works out that way. And in the back of my mind, my biggest goal was to work for a Big Four accounting firm. And so a Big Four accounting firm is kind of equivalent to working for like the Microsoft, Apple, or Google of the tech industry. And so my goal was to apply for one of those internships. So I applied 2 years early because I researched about, if you are from different schools, how the interviews are going to be, how difficult they are. And I got there, and it was extremely difficult. I had 3 interviews, and I passed the first one pretty easily. It wasn't too difficult, but it was a little challenging. The second one, though, was extremely hard. The guy asked me about 40 questions in 20 minutes, and I was just sweating at the end of it because I was so nervous, and it was just rapid fire, one question after another, which made it very difficult for me at that point. And I ended up getting the internship. But what I didn't know is when I got there that my interview wasn't the same as everybody else's. So if you're from St. Thomas or you're from Carlson or from a recruiting school, your interview was significantly easier. It was more of like, what do you like to do for fun? What's your name? But because I was from Augsburg, which wasn't a recruiting school for accounting and finance, I had to work twice as hard. I had to put in more effort to prove myself that I have the same curriculum as those of those recruiting schools. And a lot of people don't realize that. And I'm not saying don't go to a school because of the curriculum or because of like the ability to have those benefits, but that's something to think about too. Don't just go to a school because your friends are there. And if you want to become like a pilot, for example, like North Dakota has a great program for that. They hire some of the most pilots out of any school in the Midwest. If you want to go and become a police officer or a nurse, like Mankato has a great program for that. St. Cloud and Iowa, the University of Iowa, both have great programs for becoming an accountant. So it's trying to target your school and find what matches, so then the journey can be a little bit easier, or they have the resources that match it up with you. St. Thomas and University of Carlson have a really good program for becoming in the business world and finance because they just have a few extra classes that teach professionalism, organization, and kind of what person you need to be to get into these higher paying roles. And so just having those resources, again, just makes it so much easier. But if you want to go to Augsburg like I did and make a good fit for yourself, that's totally fine as well. Just know that you might have to put in some extra time or extra effort in another place. And so what really stood out for me is that I had a high GPA at this point because I was being successful in school. I had multiple jobs while going to school full time. I was working 35 hours a week, but I was doing things that I liked. And so I would work as a wedding DJ in the summertime because I thought that would be so fun, and it paid really well too. And then I was working valet at night because a lot of my friends were doing it, and I thought that would be fun to work with them, and I like cars, so we got to drive cool cars. And then during the day, I was working as an RA on campus to get cheaper housing, and that was nice because then that helped reduce the cost of college. And then I had my internship. And a typical day that looked like for me was 8 o'clock, I had a class. I know people hate 8 a.m.s, but if you have an 8 a.m., it actually helps you because one, you're going to have to be somewhere, and a lot of the time those classes are smaller so you can learn more. You can get to know the teacher or the professor more, and all of those things, again, help you out just becoming a better student. After my 8 o'clock class, that was from 8 to 9, I'd go back to my room, I would shower, I would work my internship from 10 to 2, and then after that, I would come back for my class around 3:30 until about 5-ish, and then I would go downtown to work valet from 5 to 10 p.m. And during the break, I worked for the Timberwolves. There was a bit of a break before the game, and after the game is when the rush is. Most people aren't leaving mid-game. I was working on my homework or doing something else productive that could help me, and I was getting paid for it. And then after, I would run, and that was putting me in good shape, so I didn't really have to go to the gym. And so I was getting paid, I was being as efficient as possible, get home around 10 o'clock or 10 or 11, and I would do my last homework from 10 to 12. I would go to sleep and sleep 7 hours or 8 hours, and then do it all again. And on Saturdays, I would DJ weddings or work another job. And on Sundays, I would take the day to rest and do nothing and hang out with my friends. And I had no issues hanging out with my friends or meeting up with people. There was always time for all of that. And that's the thing is, like, if you want to become a nurse or if you want to become a lawyer, look for these entry-level jobs in the summer. Look for careers that you can become the receptionist or become just working in the environment. Maybe you have to volunteer for a year if you can't find an internship. But all of that stuff adds up as experience. A lot of my friends who graduated, they were confused because the entry-level position said 1 to 2 years experience or 2 to 3 years of experience. And what they didn't understand is that that internship experience can really transfer over into that experience that they're looking for that first job. And those people who had the internships were making $20,000 to $30,000 more coming out of school versus my friends who didn't do the internships. Now they're coming out of school and they need to work that entry-level job, which doesn't pay like $20,000 less. They have to get that 2 years experience, and then they're applying for a job that's paying $60,000, which that puts them about 2 years behind in terms of like their career and their advancements, even though they could have been fully capable. And a big part of that was that they weren't applying, they weren't trying to look for internships. I usually recommend while you're in school to apply for big companies, work for like Target, work for Best Buy. We have 18 Fortune 500 companies around here. Look for their internship programs because you'll learn so much from them. Their programs are very structured. You'll meet other people who are like you. And then after that, then you can apply for smaller companies. And the smaller companies are gonna really want you because you have all these skills from the bigger companies that they don't have those resources or might not have that knowledge that the bigger companies are spending money on and teaching you, so then you can use those skills towards the smaller company, which makes you more valuable. And that's another thing to think about is like how valuable you are. If I was sitting across from you and you were sitting across from me, would you want to hire me? Be the person that you want to hire one day. If somebody came to the interview and they weren't dressed like nicely, and I'm not talking about spending money. You can wear a $2,000-$3,000 suit and it could be the wrong length. It might not fit you. It might not be ironed. Whatever it is, it's not about the cost of it. It's about the way that you're dressed, the way you come into the room, the way that your energy level is. All of those things are much, much more important than the cost of it. And if you need to borrow some clothes or if you need to ask somebody else, make sure to do that. Ask for those help because it's going to help you in your interview, and then making sure that you're on time. Like, I think if you're on time, that you're kind of late for an interview in a sense, because most people are showing up 4 or 5 minutes late, and then maybe it's the traffic or the parking ramp or whatever it is that slows them down. And then, yeah, that happens, but if you're more prepared, you're already beating all those people. Now, if you show up on time, that's the expectation, but maybe you show up 5 minutes early, you bring a notebook, and you look prepared for the interview, you're already doing things that are going to show that you're a better candidate. And a lot of the time these interviews are not very technical, they're not very hard. They really are trying to see if you're going to be a good person to work with, if you're going to be a friendly person, if you're going to represent the company well, if you have a passion to work here. And in the interview, you could talk to them about what you're looking to get out of it. Maybe you want to become the CEO one day, but you know that you have to start somewhere. Maybe your goal is to become a director, or maybe you want to work for a makeup company, but you went to school for accounting and finance because it paid well and you like that type of industry, but maybe you want to switch to marketing one day. If you show that you have a lot of good skills, you can take those towards anywhere. I have never done marketing before, but I actually make the videos for the company for internal training. They were gonna pay somebody $700-800, and they knew as an intern that I made a couple of videos, and my boss gave me the opportunity, told marketing, hey, why don't you ask Preenon to try it out? And they gave me a shot, and I did it, and they ended up using the video, and they said that it was actually better than the video that they were expecting. And if it didn't work out, at least I got the experience of trying that. And that kind of, to circle things back and to talk about other things prior to going to college, and even if it's trade school or post, anything that's post high school, the thing is that it's not, maybe you feel like college isn't important because it's too expensive, or maybe you feel like you can't do it, or maybe you feel like I don't need that because I can make money doing other stuff. What you might miss out is that college gives an opportunity to kind of continue to be a kid. And I mean that in the best way possible, because when you come out of school at 18, you might not know what you want to do the rest of your life. But when you go to college, you can take classes in theater. You have to take classes in different curriculums and industries per se. But like, I had to take a theater class and I loved it. I learned so much. I had to take a communication class and I learned about mass media and how there's only 6 companies that really control most of media, and that was something that I wasn't aware of, and it made me more aware of marketing and how communication works, which I probably would have never even thought about doing. I had to take a science class. I took science of food and cooking, and I learned about why root beer floats have the foam on the top, and that was so cool to me. And like, again, those are classes that I wouldn't have taken if I didn't have to take them. And so I learned a lot of different classes and different skill sets that carry on throughout my life later on. And also, again, with the programs like using Excel and using different systems while you're in school, you learn more about different skill sets that give you more opportunity to switch jobs. If I would have stayed at TCF and became a supervisor and then an assistant branch manager and a branch manager, I could have maybe became a regional manager and made probably similar money that I'm making now. But I would also have to do retail hours. I would have to work Saturdays and weekends, and I might not have the flexibility to do other jobs. I probably would have rented an apartment and eventually bought a house or bought a car. But if you do that right away and you come out of school and you buy a house and you buy a car, and yeah, you might be financially well off, but the thing is now you can't take the time to take a break into kind of finding yourself and what you want to do the rest of your life. And if you go to school part-time, some people try to go back to school, but now you're 25 and you're going back to school and you can't remember the things that you learned in high school. And it makes it a little bit more difficult. I know a lot of other people want to go to school for 2 years and do like a trade program, but like in certain industries, it makes a lot more sense to go for the full 4 years. If you go to become an electrician or a carpenter or a skill set, a plumber, the 2-year program is fantastic. It works really well. It's very quick, and you learn a lot of skills. If you go for computer engineering or computer software and you go for 2 years, you're going to be missing out on a lot of skill sets that the people who are going for 4 years have. And so that's something else to think about with the 2-year program. Also, if you want to go to school, go full-time. Just do it. Just knock it out. Go there, do your best, become successful, and go for the 4 years. I know a lot of people want to go for part-time so then they can pay for school while they go, but it's better to take on the student loans and take the 4-year, be successful at it, and come out, do the internships, make money, and put it away and towards your future. Because if you only go for 2 years, and you want a 2-year degree, but you do it part-time, you go for 4 years or maybe even longer, and then your curriculum's changing so quickly. Like in today's world, things change so fast over 4 years. So when you're doing that, you want to make sure that that you're staying up to date with the things that are going on in the world, that you're staying relevant, and then also when you go part-time, you're just kind of losing out against the people who've been going for 4 years. So when you come out of school, you might be applying for those lower paying jobs, or you might not have the full 2 years that you need for that internship or that skill set. So it just makes it a little bit more difficult. And then if you have rent and a car payment again, all those expenses add up, and so you can't work and take that time off for that 4 years to go to college because you have these bills to pay, which puts you back a little bit again. So one of the things that I just want you guys to think about is, can I take some time to just figure out what I want to do? Can I work these side hustles and these part-time jobs? Again, like me, I worked as a wedding DJ, and that's so fun for me. And I learned a lot about video stuff because I worked with videographers and photographers. I learned about how to make a wedding cheaper. I learned about how event planning works. At Best Buy, I love technology, and so I get to talk to people about tech all day. If I had to work there for 8 hours a day, I don't think I could do it. I think that it would be very difficult. It would be very hard for me to stand on my feet 8 hours a day. But 4 hours twice a week, talking to customers and talking to people who work there that are like-minded is so much fun for me. And then working my day job from Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, and learning about accounting and finance. And maybe eventually I want to switch out of that. But I'm doing a really good job there so I can have I have a good reputation, that people know that I work hard, that people want to hire me for the future. And that's another thing, is kind of building your brand and having a good reputation. You want to be known as the person who's showing up on time. You want to be known as the person who works really hard when they're there. You want to be known as the person who's friendly and doesn't expect a lot, and the one that's charitable and giving. Like, think of all those things of what type of person you want to be and find ways and goals to get there. And another thing is like, you might not be the best person at everything you do, and that's totally fine. But having a positive attitude, coming in happy, goes such a long way. I can't stress that enough. Like, when I work a wedding, I'm super happy. I want to keep the energy level high. When I go to Best Buy, I'm excited to be there because somebody else should be there if I'm not excited to be there. I want to continue that positive attitude. I want to make sure that people are happy. I want to work with people who have a positive attitude. If you have somebody who comes in and they're really good at what they do and they're complaining about it, of the way the desks are, or the way that the lighting is, or the way that the customers are all the time, like, it doesn't make it fun for the other people who are working there either. So having that positive mindset, and then always looking for something that might fit you better, and take risks and look for different opportunities. But overall, holding those core values again of being on time, doing a good job. If you don't understand how to do something, ask for help. Especially now, if you're not doing well in your classes, use the media center, use the resources, the writing lab, use the computer lab. Like, go and actually don't waste anybody's time. When you're in class, work really hard, be quiet and listen. And if you have a dumb question because you didn't know how to answer it, that's totally fine. It's better to understand those things than it is to just keep going by, because if you don't learn now, it's really hard to learn later. If you don't do well in high school, college isn't going to be any easier. If you start that journey now, it's going to make everything much, much easier. And again, you have a time in your life right now to mess up and make mistakes, but then try to find solutions. The first 2 years DJing, I was probably one of the worst DJs I've ever met. But I wasn't terrible to my customers. They felt like I did what I was supposed to. They weren't blown away. But then I looked on my reviews and tried to find a solution for every single one. So one of them, for example, was that I was kind of quiet. So then I made sure to be louder on the mic and have a higher energy level. Another thing is that I didn't really give clients suggestions. If they wanted to do something a certain way, that's how it was. And I was like, cool, let's just do it. But now when a client asks me about something, I give them suggestions about how to make it better. So when it's the speeches, I make sure that everybody's in the same frame. So I tell the photographer, hey, I'll have the best man or the maid of honor stand behind the bride and groom. So then that way on Instagram, when they snap that picture, it's got all three of them in the same picture instead of taking a picture of a person and then taking another one of the bride and groom. And it just makes everything that much better. And so basically, just thinking outside the box, try different things, and don't be afraid to go out there and try something you've never done before. Nobody's an expert the first time they do something. Practice makes perfect, and you want to ask for help when you need it. Ask your teachers, ask your friends, ask your family, ask whoever you can. And if you're struggling, that's the biggest thing, is asking for help when you need it. And to wrap things up, a lot of you were probably wondering, how did I make the $200,000 that I did? Well, it started with that 10 grand. Setting a goal to save 5,000 or 10,000 is a lot easier than setting a goal to make 200,000. And then every year of school, I was trying to save 10, 20, 30,000. But then the internships and the side hustles, I was just staying true to those values, only spending my valet money, putting the internship money away in my savings account, or working and using my DJ money and then putting, again, all the internship money away, and finding different ways to reinvest in myself. And I kept doing that year after year, and it seems very hard, but here's the thing, and a lot of people think you're missing out on life. If you worked Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on the weekends during college, which is very possible, and you worked at minimum wage, I know it's roughly $10 an hour, 15 hours on that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, just 5 hours a day. You could work maybe a 5 to 10 shift and still hang out with your friends at 10. People in college, they don't really go out till 10 o'clock anyways. And then work that Saturday and Sunday morning, work a 9 to 2, or work maybe like a 10 to 4 or 10 to 3, however you want to do it. If you want to work more than 5 hours, that's totally fine. I recommend 5 because then it gives you enough time to do something, or 4 to 5 hours. It gives you time to do something, but then you have the rest of the day to still enjoy. And you can still wake up at 10 o'clock, work 4 to 5 hours, and still have the whole day, and you're not too tired from the night before. And you put that all together, 10 times 15 hours a week, that's $150 that you would make every week. There's 52 weeks in a year. You'd have $7,500, a little bit more than that. Yes, there's taxes and everything, but you times that by the 4 years of college, that's $28,000. The average person is graduating with about $31,000 in debt. Even if you had $20,000 out of the $30,000 for the debt, you're still so much further ahead than anybody else. And then using that money and put it into a Roth 401k, put it into a Roth IRA. Look up these things online: individual retirement account, 401ks, and starting as early as possible. I started at age 18 with $2,500, and then at age 19 I started maxing it out, which was $6,000 a year. And then after I got my first job out of college, which I was making $60,000, I put away the max, which was $19,000 for the 401k, plus another $6,000 for the IRA, which was a total of $25,000. And that year I lived at home and I just continued to save and acted like that was what I was spending my rent money on. And then when you move out, you actually know what it's like to not have that money because it would have gone to rent anyways. And all that stuff helps me and added up and accumulated. And I end up having now at this age $120,000 in just retirement. Then I got $50,000 in a house, and then I have various money other places for cash if I have an emergency or if I want to travel and do fun stuff. I also want you guys to know is to have fun. Look for great opportunities. When you're in college, there's so many opportunities to study abroad. I studied abroad in Mexico. I also went on a trip to 10 countries over 40 days, which was one of the best things that I've ever done. I just backpacked. I watched a YouTube video. I looked on tips online again. And if you're looking on tips on how to save money, don't look up how to make $10,000. It's probably going to be a scam. If you want to look on how to make $10,000, look up how to get out of $10,000 in debt, how to save $10,000. Look in that direction and use those same skill sets no matter how much money you have. And those are going to be a lot more better resources for you. And when you go to study abroad, don't do the easy countries. And easy, I mean by like Europe. Like everybody goes to Europe. I chose to go to Mexico. And you want to go to places that you wouldn't go by yourself. Like go to different continents or different countries in the continent of Africa. Go to different cities and countries in Asia. Go to places in South America. Any place that you wouldn't necessarily go, because it's going to be a lot easier for you to go to those places than it will be with a school who's already got everything planned out than it is for you to backpack through those places, just because it might be a little bit more dangerous, or maybe it's a little bit harder with the language barrier, whatever it would be. When you go to Europe, so many people speak the same language as you, or there's enough people that you can make your way around. So that's another thing just to think about, is what opportunities that you can make in the future. Well, thank you so much, guys, for having me talk to you. I'm super excited to see you guys grow over the next couple of years and see what you end up doing, and make sure to try out those different jobs and apply for those internships and be the best person you can be. Well, thank you so much, and go Falcons.